portrait of a young man was created by the Italian Renaissance artist Raphael in 1513 to 1514, while working in Rome for the Vatican. It is possibly a self-portrait. If so, it would depict the artist at the age of 30. A view of the landscape out the window in the upper right shows castles, fields, mountains, and trees with realistic depth. It depicts a confidently poised figure leaning his arm on a table covered in carpet. He has a fur coat thrown over his left shoulder. If this is Raphael, there is no indication that the figure is a painter. Emphasis is put on his high status in society, shown from his fur coat. This means that Raphael may have seen himself as a member of society first and an artist second. World War II formally begins when Hitler invades Poland. It was in the Museum of Princess Czartoryski in Krakow, a private collection. The owners sent it to one of their residences in the countryside for safety, but the Germans found out about it. It was then brought to Göring. It was kept in the Kaiser Friedrich Museum in Berlin for a few months, but air raids were beginning, so it was sent to Wawel Castle in Krakow. The Polish formed an uprising in Warsaw, and when the Germans retreated, it was moved to Sichau Palace in Silesia. Finally, it was moved to Morale Castle. After this, its whereabouts are unknown. German soldiers had many opportunities to loot it while it was moved from place to place, and Nazis may have destroyed it under the Nero Decree. This painting is missing because of Hitler's lust for the art of Europe and his racism. He had known this painting's location and planned to steal it when he invaded Poland. He decided that the Polish would keep nothing when he invaded. Hitler wanted the painting for his Fuhrer Museum in Linz. He wanted it because it was classical, realistic art by one of the greatest old masters. He would not have seen it as degenerate but German. This painting's cultural ethos is that it was created by one of the greatest artists in history. It's missing, and it comes out of a time period that is responsible for the way we live our lives now. It is important, and you should care because of those reasons. Raphael Sanzio da Urbino was an Italian painter and architect. He was born in Urbino in 1483, the son of a painter. He was trained by the master painter Perugino. He moved to Florence in 1504 to learn the current style of art being created by Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. He was summoned by Pope Julius II to Rome in 1508. He stayed in Rome and continued to create art for the Vatican until he died at age 37 in 1520. Raphael, called the Prince of Painters and Il Divino, or the Divine One, was one of the greatest artists and old masters of all time. His works embodied the ideas of the High Renaissance, which can be thought of as the climax of the general period that is called the Renaissance. Along with Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, he completes the trinity of the artists who created the High Renaissance in Italy and are some of the greatest ever. The most important element of this time, and something he does extremely well, is the merging of the ideal or heavenly with the physical or reality. Khan Academy defines this element as uniting the real and spiritual, or soul and substance, with figures who are real and physical, and yet have an undeniable and intense spirituality. His work is known for having harmony, balance of composition, grace, emotion, and real or lifelike movements. Emotion and realistic portrayals were in contrast to previous, especially realistic, religious art. He was also skilled at creating depth and perspective in his paintings, effectively creating a look of 3 dimensions in a 2-dimensional canvas. Raphael's Marriage of the Virgin is an example of his characteristic ideal harmonious style. Mary is shown as tender and in an elegant counterpose. Her sweet depiction is typical of this artist. We can also see linear perspective in the white parts of the temple stairs. They draw our eyes back to the landscape in the foreground. The people in the crowd are realistically moving and looking around. Raphael shows the actual chaos of the world, but elegantly. The Stanza della Segnatura is a collection of large paintings on the walls of the Vatican that Raphael created while serving the Pope. They were originally in the library of Pope Julius II. They represent the High Renaissance in Rome. They show the four branches of human knowledge: philosophy, theology, poetry, and jurisprudence. They are significant because religion is placed equal to human knowledge. The philosophy portion, often called the School of Athens, displays great thinkers of history such as Plato, Aristotle, and Pythagoras. Foreshortening can be seen as the figures near us are larger. The many figures are shown without any sense of stiffness or repetition. The people overlap and move easily between and amongst the others. In contrast to the medieval control of knowledge by authority and the forced acceptance of such, we get the sharing of knowledge in a democratic fashion. Far from the previous idea of the artist as a craftsman, they are now considered an intellectual on par with some of the greatest thinkers in history. This is shown as Raphael has included himself in the far right among the great minds. This is the theology portion, also called the Disputation of the Holy Sacrament. It shows a separation of heaven and earth. Notice the graceful positions and counterposes of the angels in the center. This is Raphael's portrait of Pope Julius II. Notice the crispness and clarity of jewels and the softness of the fur edging. His remarkable talent and attention to detail can also be seen in the flowing crinkles in the Pope's white shirt. Raphael also captures the Pope's personality with elements such as the left hand firmly gripping the chair and the pensive-looking face. Here is Raphael's Madonna of the Goldfinch. Mary is in the center, John the Baptist on the left, and Jesus on the right. Raphael depicts a tenderness between Mary and Jesus, with the placement of Jesus' foot on Mary's. He shows Christ as a child, but also as the wise Messiah. This is an example of the merging of the spirit and substance. The figures form a triangle which creates balance, perfection, and stability through geometry. This painting is missing. It is the most valuable of all the missing art looted by Hitler, estimated in the Rape of Europa film at least $100 million today if found. Kenneth Alford, author of Allied Looting in World War II, has called it the single most valuable item still missing from World War II. This is one of only about 3 or 4 other self-portraits by Raphael, making it more valuable and special. It is important to find this painting so it can be enjoyed by the public and preserved properly to protect from degradation. If it does still exist, it may not be in the possession of someone who is able to properly preserve its condition.